Hey, fifth graders, welcome to Compare and Contrast Day 4. We've been working on comparing and contrasting for 3 days, and today we're going to talk about the difference between the similarities and differences between Athens and Sparta. But first, like all videos, let's talk about our learning objectives, which are you will learn strategies for analyzing questions and finding answers, clues, and evidence. You will identify comparisons and contrasts in a text. You will answer text-dependent compare and contrast questions. And finally, you will use academic sentence frames to discuss strategies. So, all right, just to review, compare and contrast. When authors compare, they tell how two or more things are like. So compare means similarities, okay? When authors contrast, they tell how two or more things are different. Then looking for differences. Authors use signal words such as also, similar, both, and like to help readers identify comparisons. And on the other side, authors use signal words such as difference, but, however, and while to help readers identify contrast. And remember, when we're talking about comparing and contrasting, when you compare something, you automatically are contrasting. You're identifying the similarities, but you're also identifying the differences. And the same goes for when you're contrasting, you're automatically seeing how they're similar, so then you can point out the differences. All right, so let's move on here. We're going to be working with today Athens and Sparta. And let me read this to you. Actually, why don't you take some time and read it to yourself? And then when you are done reading it, why don't you restart the video and we will have a short discussion about it, okay? All right, ladies and gentlemen, hopefully you are restarting the video after reading the article on Athens and Sparta. And let's look at what we want to do right now. What we'd like you to do is to, using this sentence frame, one way Athens and Sparta are alike is blank. One way they are different is blank. You're going to complete that. Now, unfortunately, I did not put this in your packet because for some reason it's not there. Unless I did, but I'm pretty sure I didn't. And then once you do that, you'll do another way Athens and Sparta are alike is blank, and another way they are different is blank. Now, one of the things for both of these is I just left a blank, but you're probably going to need a little bit more information because in a second we're going to talk about kind of some of the things that you might have found. So why don't you pause the video and find one similarity and one difference, and then find another similarity and one difference. So pause the video and get to work. All right, fifth graders, hopefully you did your job and you completed and found two similarities and two differences. Now here, as we look at the next page, here are some of the comparisons. Athens and Sparta were two of the most powerful city-states in ancient Greece. That's one. Both city-states ruled the land all around them. Both had agoras or open air marketplaces. And then finally, the last similarity you could have listed is both had gymnasiums where boys received physical and military training. Now, we had four similar comparisons, but when we look at contrasts, we didn't have as many. First one, in Athens, young men trained to be soldiers while also learning to give speeches and play musical instruments. In Sparta, however, the greatest honor for a young man was to die defending his city-state. And then the second one, in Athens, most women did not go to school. They did not engage in business or participate in sports. In Sparta, on the other hand, girls could participate in athletic activities and get an education. Okay, so hopefully you found some similarities and you had found two of these comparisons, and then you had these two contrasts. Now, you probably didn't write this whole thing, but you might have written something like greatest honor in Sparta was to die defending the city-state, or in Sparta, girls could participate in athletic activities and get in it. and education. So you probably didn't write that whole thing, but hopefully you wrote part of that, okay? And hopefully you wrote enough so that someone who's reading it can understand what you were trying to read, okay? So let's look back here. Sometimes you need to answer questions about a passage you've read. Some questions require you to compare and contrast information. Today we're going to read and answer questions. Some of the questions will ask us to compare and contrast. So now let's look back at our Athens and Sparta article, okay? And I'm just going to read this in terms of Athens and Sparta were two of the most powerful city-states in ancient Greece. Each city-state was more like a country than a city. Both city-states ruled the land all around them. Athens and Sparta had many similarities. Both had agoras, or open-air marketplaces. Both had gymnasiums, where boys received physical and military training. But Athens and Sparta were different in many ways, too. In Athens, young men trained to be soldiers while also learning to give public speeches and play musical instruments. In Sparta, however, the greatest honor for a young man was to die defending his city-state. Women in Athens and in Sparta had very different lives. In Athens, most women did not go to school. They did not engage in business or participate in sports. In Sparta, on the other hand, girls could participate in athletic activities and get an education. Many Spartan women were active in business. Okay, so now let's look at our BLM 5, or the Athens and Sparta comprehension questions. Okay, so let's look at this, and let's look at the first question. Which word or words is used in the second paragraph to signal a comparison telling how Sparta and Athens are similar? So we have to ask first, what is the question asking us to do? Okay, is it asking us to make an inference? Is it asking us to draw a conclusion? What strategy are we going to use? Now, hopefully, boys and girls, you know that we're going to talk about comparing and contrasting information, and it's asking us which word is used in the second paragraph to signal a comparison. So it is asking us to find a word that signals a similarity. Okay, to find a word that signals a similarity, I will need to look for specific words in the text. What words in the question will help me know what to look for? So when I look in this question, what words are helping me figure out what to look for? Well, because we know the entire article is about Sparta and Athens, and this question is asking specifically about Sparta and Athens and how they are similar. So what I'm going to look for in the second paragraph is similarities between Sparta and Athens. Okay? Now, we're ready to reread the passage to find the information we need. We know we need to look for the word that signals a similarity. I'll skim the second paragraph to see if the author mentions any similarities. Okay, so let's go back here. All right, second paragraph is right here. Athens and Sparta had many similarities. Both had agoras, or open-air marketplaces. Both had gymnasiums where boys received physical and military training. So now let's look back here. Which word is used in the second paragraph to signal a comparison telling how Sparta and Athens are similar? And what I see a sentence that uses the word both. In fact, I see one sentence that uses the word both had agoras and open-air markets, and I see a second sentence that uses the word both. So, oops, I went the wrong way. The answer, I found it by searching for clue words from the question. So the answer makes sense, and that answer is C, both. All right, so your job, boys and girls, is to, when you're done watching the video, is to complete the quiz or the comprehension questions. And we'll talk about these comprehension questions in guided reading. So bring this to guided reading next time. Okay, so there are 1, 2, 3, 4 questions. I didn't get the fourth question because otherwise it would have been too small. All right, so in closing, let's just review, compare, and contrast. When authors compare, they tell how two or more things are alike. Okay, when authors contrast, they tell how two or more things are different. Um, Authors use signal words such as also, similar, both, and like to help readers identify comparisons. And then they also use signal words such as different, but, however, and while to help readers identify contrast. All right, boys and girls, that's all we have for today. I hope that makes sense, and we will talk again. Oh, I guess what I would like you to do is I'd like you to practice comparing and contrasting. This strategy can help you answer questions in all your subjects because we don't just compare and contrast in reading. We will in with planners and in mathematics we compare numbers all the time. Okay, so all right, that's it.